Law 529, Law of Evidence 1, the topic Similar Facts Evidence, Lecture 2. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In this video, I am going to explain to you the position of common law in allowing similar facts evidence to be tendered as evidence in the court. Remember, as a general rule, the previous misconduct of the accused person which are unrelated to the current facts and issue cannot be tendered as evidence in the court. However, the common law has recognized three positions or three approaches in which similar facts evidence can be tendered. And the first one is through the test of specific purpose test or special categorization test, which was established in the case of Makin and AG of New South Wales. The second approach is actually through the striking similarity test, and the third one will be in the probative value test. So I'm going to explain to you the position of this test one by one. Right. So what we have basically similar facts evidence. Yes, similar facts evidence, and of course the general rule, it is not relevant, not admissible, because we are talking about the previous misconduct of the accused person which is not related to the current charge. However, under the common law, the first case which introduced the position or allowing similar facts evidence was first introduced in the case of Makin. So you have the first case which allowed for similar facts evidence to be tendered by looking through the case of Makin against AG of New South Wales. Now what happened in this case? Right, in this case, what happened here is that you have an accused person, you have Mr. and Mrs. Makin who were in charge for the murder of children, of babies. Now what happened here is that, right, say the facts and issue now is whether Mr. and Mrs. Makin killed baby one. Now the incident that happened in this case is that Mr. and Mrs. Makin here has been found to have committed the offense of killing babies, and the modus operandi in which the babies were killed is that, number one, so the similarity of facts that we are talking about here is that all the babies that were killed by Mr. and Mrs. Makin were basically adopted. They were given to them for adoption, and they were paid about £3 for an adoption, which is very, very low amount of money. And basically what happened here is that, alright, there have been stories related by Mr. Makin that they have lost a baby, therefore they love babies very much. And then also incident where they told the parents of the baby they adopted that they do not want to have any clothes. There's no need for them to give them any clothing for the babies. And then what happened was that eventually the baby was said to have died because of pneumonia. Therefore, they claimed that the baby are all died because of natural causes. And what happened here is that upon investigation, the police found that there were more than 25 babies found buried at the backyard of Mr. and Mrs. Makin house. And when they went to the earlier houses of Mr. and Mrs. Makin, they also found bodies of babies being buried at the compound of the house, and all the babies was buried with the same manner in which their hands were folded and they were wrapped in white paper, in white cloth. So basically that is the facts that we are talking about. So the incident of killing of babies may happen way before And the facts and issue here, whether Mr. and Mrs. Makin killed baby 1, right? And the prosecutor in this case is trying to bring the incidents of murder of so many other babies that was found buried at the backyard. So the facts and issue here is whether or not to prove that Mr. and Mrs. Makin here killed baby 1, can they bring the evidence, can the prosecutor bring the evidence of previous murders and the babies, the buried babies that were found at the backyard of Mr. and Mrs. Makin house. Now what happened in this case is that we have Lord Herschel that has done the formulation in discussing about similar facts evidence. Now what is stated by Lord Herschel is that in discussing whether we should allow similar facts evidence, the discussion can basically be separated into 2 limbs. The first one, as a general rule, the previous misconduct of the accused person is not relevant nor admissible if it is to show that the accused person is guilty of committing the crime that he has committed or other than the one that is currently charged. So this is actually the first limb of Makin. However, Lord Herschel in the second limb of Makin says that similar facts evidence become relevant and admissible if the previous actions of the accused person tends to show that, number 1, it is designed or to reflect an accident, or if it is used to rebut a defense. Right. Now what happened here is that Lord Herschel has introduced certain categorization or certain purpose of evidence in which it can be used to tender and to show existence of similar facts evidence. So this is why the test introduced in Makin is reflective of the specific purpose test or special categorization test. You have to ask a question. If you want to bring the similar facts evidence in the court, say you have here SFE, you have the previous misconduct here, you have to ask the question, why are you bringing in the previous misconduct? What is the purpose? So why or what is the purpose of you bringing in the previous misconduct? Now, if the purpose is to show that the action was designed or to rebut an accident, or the purpose is to rebut the existence of a defense, then similar facts evidence can be tendered to show that. So the test under similar facts evidence for special categorization test introduced in Makin is actually looking into the categories of relevance. You have to understand that after the case of Makin, the court has developed several other categories, right? Several other categories or purpose in allowing similar facts evidence in which basically through case law, similar facts evidence can be tendered to show design, to show accident, to rebut a defense, to show system, to show identity, right? You are tendering evidence to show that this person was murdered by the same person, so to show identity, to rebut mistake, right? And to rebut innocent association, and basically to show unnatural or vicious propensity. Now, what Lord Herschel did in the special categorization test, and eventually after that, is to develop series of purposes to allow for similar facts evidence. That is why when you look into the test of special categorization test or the specific purpose test, you will have to ask the question, why are you tendering the similar facts evidence? What is the purpose of you bringing in the similar facts evidence? If the purpose of you bringing in the similar facts evidence is to show the existence of a system, for example, then the evidence can be tendered. Now, what happened in this case? The evidence can be tendered. So what happened here? If we look at the example that I have with you last time, right? If you look at the example that which I gave you, yeah, remember when I gave you last time, we have a situation where A is basically currently a charge for assault of V1, who is a 10-year-old boy, right? And he approached V1 at Taman Tasik Shah Alam at 7 p.m., right? And he said to the boy, please help me look for my lost cat. And basically then sexually assaulted the boy, and then give the boy 50 cents. And when you look at the incident that happened, this happened in the 1st of April 2020. The issue here is, can the prosecutor bring in the previous misconduct of the accused person on 1st of January 2010, where the accused person was charged, but of course this charge not amounting to an acquittal, for assaulting V, who is a 9-year-old, who alleged to have committed the assault at Taman Tasik Titi Wangsa around 7:15 p.m., claim for a lost cat, where the boy is sexually assaulted, and basically 50-cent coin is being tendered. Now, if you want to use similar facts evidence under the Makin special categorization test, you have to ask the question. So what you have to do is that the prosecutor here, to bring an evidence of similar fact under special categorization test, the prosecutor here is going to tender the incident of assault in 2010 here for the purpose of establishing that there is a system in which A works. So the modus operandi reflect the existence of a system. He will look for a boy who is 10-year-old or 9-year-old, so he's looking for a young teenage boy. And the incident happened at Taman Tasik Shah Alam or Taman Tasik Titi Wangsa. You are talking about the location is similar. It is basically at Taman Tasik or near the lake. And the time in which the offense is committed, 7:15, 7 p.m., it is about the same time. And the MO is that he will claim for a lost cat. So the same situation happened, sexual assault happened, and the children were given 50 cents after the assault. This reflects the existence of a system under the special categorization test. When you apply, it can also reflect the existence of design under the special categorization test. So what happened here is that the prosecutor can tender the incident of 2010 here to reflect the existence of a system in which A here, the accused person here, committed the offense of sexual assault by using the same MO. So you are talking about here, you are using the special categorization test to reflect the existence of a system, design, and therefore the person who committed the offense in 2010, because of the MO is the same, it also can identify the identity of the offender. So this is a situation where you may have serial offender having the same ritual modus operandi, and you can catch him under similar facts evidence, right? So this is what we talk about the special categorization test. We are looking at the purpose of you tendering the previous misconduct, which either to show system, design, identity, and so many categories that have been recognized by the common law. All right? Now, the second test to determine, to allow for similar facts evidence is basically by applying the striking similarity test. Now, why or how did striking similarity test occur? Now what happened here is that when you have incident of modus operandi which is the same, offense that is committed is the same. Now how many times can it be considered as repetition? Basically the case of Straffen says that an offense can be committed twice for it to be regarded as repeating itself. Now the reason why striking similarity tests occur is because of the inadequacy or insufficiency of the specific purpose test. The question was always be, when or how are we going to open up the list of categorization? Because when you talk about the special categorization test, the court will keep on opening up new categories or new purpose to allow for similar facts evidence to be tendered. So the question has been, when can we stop producing or allowing for new purposes? So because of that, the court has developed into the second approach in allowing similar facts evidence, that is by looking at the striking similarity test. So when we look at the striking similarity test, we are talking about the manner, the modus operandi which are strikingly similar in committing the crime. So we are basically looking, if you look at the particular notes here, we are talking about the repetition of the previous misconduct is strikingly similar to the current charge. And this particular case or this particular test has been developed in the case of R.M. Sims and eventually been approved in the Boardman test. Yeah? Because the rationale is that the likelihood of coincidence becomes less and less when people make similar allegations, and the more striking are the similarities, the more unlikely for it to be coincident. So it means that if the modus operandi or the manner in which the offense is committed so strikingly similar, then the likelihood of it being coincident will be very, very much lesser. Meaning to say that it was intentionally done like that, it is actually a crime that has been committed by the offender. And when we look at the case of R. and Novak here, right? When we are looking at striking similarity, we are looking at some unique feature or some unusual feature for it to be able to be categorized into striking similarity. So if you're talking about repetition of a mere habit, then it's not going to fall under similar facts evidence. All right. Now let's look at the previous illustration, right? So if you have this incident, now can I apply the situation of A committing a crime here under striking similarity test? Remember, under striking similarity test, we are looking at the facts which are strikingly similar, and according to Novak, it has to be something that is unusual or unique feature that is strikingly similar. Now, when you look at here, so you have here the incident of A here, sexually assaulting a boy in 2020 V1. He is now currently charged for the assault of this particular boy. Now, can the prosecutor bring in the previous misconduct of sexual assault to a different victim V in 2010? Now, I am going to apply the striking similarity test. Now, if I am to apply the striking similarity test, remember when we look at Novak, when we look at the case of R and Sim, we are looking at the fact, and the fact has to be strikingly similar. So that is striking similarity test. Now let's look at the fact here. Look at the boy here, the victim. V1 here is a 10-year-old boy, and V in 2010 is a 9-year-old boy. So they are within the same range of age. They are young, teenage, young boy who is about 9 or 10 years old. So they are within the same range, right? And the location in which the crime is committed, so this one, the current one happened at Taman Tasik Shah Alam, so it is actually near the lake. The second incident happened also at Taman Tasik, Titiwangsa, which is also near the lake. So the lake location here is strikingly similar. It falls within the same category, near the lake. And the time in which the offence is committed, it is basically dusk, about 7 p.m. and 7:15 p.m. The range of time is also strikingly similar, and the MO, basically they were approached by saying that there was lost cat, and then they were sexually assaulted, and each boy here were given 50 cents after assault. Now if you look at the incident here, you find that the incident of assault on victim number 1 is strikingly similar with the incident of assault on victim number 2, right? That is in 2010. So when we apply the striking similarity test, you cannot deny the fact that the MO, the modus operandi, is strikingly similar, and the similarity will be something of some unusual feature. For example, they were given 50 cents, right? The MO of the lost cat here, that will be reflective of something which are strikingly similar. So, if I'm a prosecutor, I can bring the evidence of assault that happened in 2010 against V here to prove that the accused person is now doing the offense against V1 here under the striking similarity test as established in the case of R.N. Sims. So basically, the incident of assault committed by A here can be considered under the special categorization test in Makin. It can also fit into the test of striking similarities as introduced in the case of R.N. Sims. Okay? So that will be the position of the second test under the common law, that is the striking similarity test. The third approach under the common law is actually to look into similar facts evidence from the probative value test. Now, if you look at this one, now, when you look at the probative value test here, you are looking at the case as a whole, whether the probative force of the misconduct, of other misconduct, outweighs the prejudicial effect it has on the accused person, intending to show that he was guilty of another crime committed earlier. So the test, the probative value test, basically developed because of the inadequacy of the striking similarity test. Because when you have striking similarity test, you have to look at each facts one by one. They have to be strikingly similar. What happened here? What happened if you have the modus operandi maybe consists of 5 similar actions or 5 similar facts, 5 facts which are similar. And what happened here is that the accused person managed to complete 3 similarity of facts but failed to complete 2 facts, meaning to say that the accused person here committed the second offense which are not strikingly similar. There have been departure from the earlier facts. So you will have some difficulties in tendering evidence under striking similarities. So that because of the shortcoming in the striking similarity test, the court in DPP and Boardman, or Boardman and DPP, basically developed the probative value test. Yeah. So in the probative value test, the admissibility of similar facts evidence is to be determined by the strong degree of probative force as opposed to the prejudicial effect of the accused person. Now, if you look at the probative force, what does it mean by probative force? Probative force is basically referring to the potency or strength of the evidence that show the disposition which is unfavorable to the accused person, whereby probative force may be determined by striking similarity of the previous misconduct with the current one. So what happened here is that in the case of Boardman, the court has basically says that degree of probative force must be looked from the whole situation of a case, and sometimes striking similarity can contribute in establishment of probative force that the accused person commits the crime. And the probative force here has to be balanced with the prejudicial effect it may have on a case. So what is prejudicial effect? it refers to the tendency that influences the judge that the accused person is the one who committed the current charge because he has done something similar, he has done some similar misdeed. So there is a need for the judge to balance the probative value that may reflect his guilt of the crime compared to and balance it from the perception that the judge believes that he committed the crime because he is a bad guy. So there's a need for you to do the balancing act under the probative value test. Okay. Now let's look at here. Sorry. Some technical error here. Hold on, there's some technical error here that I have to solve on this point. Okay. So, okay, let's see. Come on. Okay. No, this is not right. Where is my quick note? Okay, I've lost my quick note. Okay. Okay. Oh God. Okay. Wait. Okay. Right. So what happened here, when we apply the probative value test, remember the probative value test, we are basically doing a balancing between the probative value outweighs whether it outweighs a prejudicial effect or not. Now, how do you apply the probative value test which was introduced in Boardman in this situation? When the court considered the incident of similar facts of assault in victim number 1, so will the incident of that the accused possibly commits the crime here has high probative value or not compared to the prejudicial effect? So if you look at the situation, by looking at the similarity of facts in 2010 here, you will find that probative value here is contributed by striking similarity, and you can't deny the fact that the accused person is the one who committed the crime. Okay? Now, the case of probative value test, the test of probative value test is basically introduced in the case of Boardman against DPP. Right? Now, what happened in this case is that you have the accused person here who is a warden in this particular boarding school, and the facts in issue here is whether he sexually assaulted the school children. So basically what we have here, so the facts in issue here is whether A sexually assaulted one of the school children, say for example V. The modus operandi in which he was claimed to have committed a crime is that he approached the victim at the wee hour of the night, say for example around 3 a.m. in the morning. He go to the room, he said to the victim, whispering to him, say that he has committed an offense, and asked the boy to come to his office, in which he sexually assaulted the boy. He asked the boy to be active participant, to be actively doing some sexual acts on him, in which he was reacting passively. And that is how the incident of sexual assault happened. Now what happened here is that there have been another incident of sexual assault which happens to another victim at a different time, in which this particular victim was approached at the wee hour of a night as well, say for example 3 a.m., where the accused person here whispered to him, say that he has committed a crime, so come to my office, we will discuss this matter, and asked the boy to go to the office, in which when he was in the office, he asked the boy to undress, and instead of assaulting the boy, what happened here is that the boy pushed him and managed to run away. Yeah, he managed to run away. So what happened here is that there is no incident of sexual assault with respect to victim number 1 as compared to the other victim V here. There have been sexual assault. Now in this case, the issue here is that when you are to employ the probative value test, you must do the balancing. That is whether the probative value that the accused commits the crime outweighs the prejudicial effect that it may have. Now if you look at the facts here, the modus operandi is basically similar. The approach is the age of the victim is about the same age, the time in which the victim commits the crime, so the time of the victim was approached by the accused person is about the same time. The MO is the same. The only difference is that victim number 1 was not sexually assaulted, but victim V here was sexually assaulted. So here, the modus operandi, by looking at the case as a whole, has high probative value that the accused person could have been committing the crime. Now, in analyzing the prejudicial effect, there is a need for you to look at the situation as a whole. Now, like in this case, what happened here is that, was there any possibility that something which is prejudicial on the accused person, perhaps the existence of conspiracy among the school children to basically make a bad reputation of the accused person? Remember, V and V1 here is within the same boarding school. Maybe they are within the same range of age. Maybe they have been discussion or conspiracy among these two children, planning to basically put accused person here in a bad light. They were basically no assault, but they are making stories to say that they have been assault. So the court has to consider the possibility of the existence of conspiracy, which could be prejudicial on the accused person in this context. So what happened here, right? What happened here, in the case of Boardman against TPP, upon balancing the probative value and the prejudicial effect, the court found that there is no element of conspiracy. Therefore, the probative value is high. Therefore, the court says that we can bring in the previous misconduct of similar facts evidence under the probative value test. Okay? So that is actually the probative value test. Now, what I have discussed with you so far is the position of the common law in allowing similar facts evidence, in which we have 3 approaches: the special categorization approach, the striking similarity test approach, and the probative value test approach. And these are the approaches which is the position of the common law. None of it has been overruled. It is still a good law, and it has been adopted as part of our law in Malaysian Evidence Act. Right? Therefore, I complete discussion on the common law position in allowing similar facts evidence. In my next video, I will explain to you the position of similar facts evidence under the Evidence Act 1950.